Okay, so here we have the back pattern. You need to go ahead and trace it onto your white paper. And then the first thing you're going to do after you trace it onto your white paper, you're going to take your ruler and go from the outside of this dart leg there. And you're going to match it up with this dart leg here. Okay, so we're going to from right here to right there. Okay, so I'm going to position my ruler. You might have to kind of niggle it a little bit. And I'm just going to draw a line from those two dots there. After you draw that line, you want to make sure that you place a little horizontal line there, as well as right there. These are going to be your notches for later. Okay, after that, you're going to make a line from here to the same dot right there. Okay, so I'm just going to draw the same line. Okay, if for some reason when you drew your line, you didn't get your horizontal line all the way over, you need to bring that all the way over. Okay, and then from here, all you're simply going to be doing is cutting out here and cutting out right all this. Okay, so that's basically all you have to do for this one. You will have to use your curved ruler to make this a little curve. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out and then show you how to label it. Okay, so as I cut this out, I just started up here at the shoulder. So you're cutting this stuff that I scribbled out. Okay, and I'm going to continue just going along my line here. Okay, and I would have curved it with my curved ruler. However, I do not have one here with me. Okay, I'm just going to turn to cut that out like that. Okay, so then I have my piece. I'll cut out the rest of this. Okay, make sure you're cutting exactly on the lines. Okay. Okay. All right, so there's your one piece there. Okay, so we're going to cut out the rest of this. So remember, we're cutting out this stuff that we scribbled. So I'm going to continue cutting along this line here. Okay, so that line was already drawn. That nothing happened to that line. It stays the same. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cut the bottom out. Okay, so now I'm cutting this part of the dart out, basically. Okay, I'm cutting through this line there. And there's my little excess piece. Throw that away. And then I'm just cutting a little neck here. Okay, so there's the back. Now, what you have here are two pieces. So now you have to label them. So I did make sure that my notches were there. So you can keep them little lines like that. If you want to draw little, triangle notches like that, you can. So this piece here becomes the center back. This piece here becomes the side back. And you can just use initials like that, CB and SB. You also need to make sure that you draw your grain lines. Okay, grain line on both pieces. Okay, so the grain line on your center back should be parallel, okay, to your center back edge there. And this one should be parallel to your side seam. Okay. So those are the markings you need to make. You need to make sure that you mark your notches. You can either keep them like that. Okay, then you need to relabel this piece, the center back, and this piece, the side back, which can be abbreviated just like that, and then you've got your grain lines there. That's all you need to do for the back. So that one's pretty easy. Okay, so I am going to trace out my original pattern to make the darts in here, because you do need them. I'm just going to put like little lines right there and there so I know where they are. I'm going to put a little line right there and right there so I know where they are. Now to get the point here, there's a couple of things you can do. One thing is you can just put a straight pin through it so you know exactly where you're going. I also just tend to put my finger on that dot or just fold it over, and I can see kind of through the paper where that dot is. So I make a dot. And the same with this side here. I know it's right there, right where I folded, and right there. Okay, so at that point then you would just connect your dots. Now if you want to use tracing paper and a tracing wheel, you certainly can do that. It might be easier, but however is easiest and fastest for you is what you need to do here. Okay, so now I'm just drawing my darts. Okay, that's the only two things you need to draw on here are your darts. Okay, you don't need to draw anything else at this point. Okay, so there is my original pattern. So the first thing you're going to do is from the middle of the shoulder. Okay, okay, that shoulder is 4.5. So at about the 2 1/4 line. Okay, and you can kind of approximate it too, but at that line there, okay, so that's my halfway point right there on my shoulder. Okay, so what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to draw a line from that midway point to this point at the dart. Okay, I've got that little point there too. Okay, and there's my lines from either. All right, so I'm going to go from there to that dot. Okay, just draw a line right there. Okay, so that's your first step. Okay, from there, you're going to measure up from this dot here. So it's all about this dot. You're going to measure up 1 inch, make a little mark right there. Okay, so that's up 1 inch from the dot, 1 inch. And then from that same dot through the center of the dart, okay, from this dot here to the center of the dart, you're going to come right there. Okay, so from these two lines, these are going to be your notches, so you need to make nice long lines between those two. Okay, so this one kind of comes out like that, and then this one comes out like that. Okay, so this kind of makes a little V shape to get it, you know, exactly right. But you want to make sure that your lines are long enough there. Okay, so after you've made these two notches, then you're going to just continue to draw down to that dart leg right here. Okay, to the right dart leg. So it's gonna be kind of a strange angle here. Okay, it should be somewhat straight. So you might have to kind of move it over a little bit. Okay, so there's my new line right there. Okay, now what you're going to do is from this dart point here, you're going to measure going that way to 3/8 of an inch. Okay, so I'm going to kind of turn my paper this way. Okay, again, this is that side dart. And I'm going to measure 3 lines. So that's 1, 2, 3. Okay, I made a little mark there. And it's a good idea maybe just to make a little X there. Okay, so again, what I did is I measured from this dot here over 3/8. So that is 3 of the little lines on your ruler. Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3. Okay, I made a little X for that. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at that same mid-shoulder point up here. And I'm going to draw a line from that shoulder point to my X. Okay, from the mid-shoulder point again, that same place you started out this whole process, to my X. Okay, so right there. Okay, from there, what you're going to do is then connect this X to this line down there. Okay, and now you've got what you're going to be cutting out. Okay, and again, this line didn't go all the way through, so I want to make sure that that line goes all the way through. And same here. So those notch lines need to be really long when you first draw them. Okay, so now at this point, what I'm going to be doing is cutting out all of this. Okay, I'm going to cut out all of that right there, this little piece. Okay, so the good news is this piece is pretty much done. You just need to label it. We're going to actually have a cut on fold line here. And this will be labeled front. Here's my notches right here, so you don't have to do anything with that. I'm just going to cut that part out. And then I'm going to cut this part out over here. And I am going to use my French curve, or my curved ruler, and I'm going to make this a little softer right there. Okay. All right, so I'm going to cut this out, and then I'll come back and we're going to deal with the rest of this piece here. This piece is done. Okay, I've labeled it. I've got my on the fold, and I've labeled it front. Okay. Okay, so here are my two pieces cut out. Okay, so there's my front piece. This is the piece I cut out right there. Or maybe it's right here. Sorry. I grabbed the wrong piece. The piece I cut out right there. So this piece is done. You can put it with the other pieces. Okay, so now we're going to deal with this piece right here. Okay, so this next part's a little easier. I've got the center of the dart right there. It's that little kind of point that goes out and down. So I'm going to connect the center of the dart to this dot right there. Okay, and draw a straight line using my ruler. Okay, there we go. So basically I'm just cutting that dart in half with a straight line. And then what I'm going to do is I actually want to use my scissors and cut this, and I'm going to stop right as close as I can to the point. Okay, so like right about there. All right, so I'm just simply cutting on that line that I just drew. Okay, so it's barely hanging on at this point. Okay, barely hanging on at this point. Okay, this is where the tape comes in. What you have to do is we're basically going to take this line here and match it up with that line there. Okay, so I'm putting that line on top of the other line, just like that. Okay, so I have this line right here. Get this shoulder back. This line right here and this line right there. And I'm taking them and I'm matching them up exactly. Okay, so these two lines, if you want to go this way, you can go that way as well. It doesn't matter which way you go. But basically you are getting that out of the way. So matching up this line right here to this line right there. I'm going to cross it over, match them up so they're laying on top of each other. And this is the point where you're going to tape, and you should have like a little curve there. Okay, so I'm just going to tape it. All right, and there I've got kind of my point. Now, if you are desperately running out of time at this point, you can go ahead and throw another piece of tape on that, label it, and it's done. Okay, but ideally what you want to do is actually Here we go with the tracing again. You want to put this on a new piece of paper and cut it out. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and do that this time. I'm going to just trace around it. When I get down to this curve, I'm going to want to smooth it out right here. Okay, so using the French curve, the hip curve, whatever you have, I'm going to smooth that out. So I'm just tracing around it. Okay, I've smoothed it out right there. You can smooth it out a little bit more after you draw it. Okay, so I'm just tracing. So if you can't really see this that well, that's all I'm doing. Tracing, and I will make these lines a little better. It's kind of hard to videotape this part. Okay, obviously you're gonna make it look a little prettier than that. Okay, make sure you transfer over your little notch lines. Okay, so there's my piece. Okay, yeah, I do actually have a little curve thing here, so I can show you how that's used. Okay, to make that curve a little prettier. Okay, a little more body shaped. Okay, see, I was kind of off there, so I'm gonna use that to make it just a little smoother. Okay, now obviously your lines will look a little better than this. You're going to label this SF for side front. Okay, and then you're simply going to draw your grain line, ideally with a ruler. Okay, then you cut that out and then you're done. Then you've got your 4 pieces. Okay, because I did the front first. The front is faster, so there's the front. I'm sorry, the back is faster. There's your front, there's your side front, there's your center back, and your side back. Okay, so those are the 4 pieces you should have when you finish this process.